Hello, hello, hello. What is up, beautiful people? Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to The Sleepover. And this is my podcast. And on here, I felt the need to, I want to talk about music on a deeper level. So this might not be for everybody. This is for the actual music nerds, music lovers, the ones that like to draw parallels between songs and their inspirations and so forth. So, I woke up today and I had a couple things on my mind, and I was reading the comments from the reactionary videos, if that's what we want to call them, that I've been doing lately on YouTube. And, I'm having a blast doing them. And in doing so, I noticed that a lot of people seem to have gravitated towards the informational bubbles and learning who the references are and things like that. And I really appreciate that, because that's my personal taste and input on trying to make the kind of content that I would personally want to watch. And with that said, on my Patreon, I have a series called DNA. And that is where I really break down songs to their stems and play individual tracks from the songs, the acapellas and things like that, and show how a song's created. And this is an extension of that, but this is more of a purely audio version of that. So this will be two parts. The first part will be audio in podcast format, I guess. And the second part will be video on my Patreon, where I actually play with the stems and do some live remixing and things like that. So it'll be a fun time. It's really cool. If you haven't checked out the one with Closer by RM, it's a really cool deep dive into that. So the thing that's on my mind today is inspiration, influence, emulation, and the differences between paying homage and trying to copy someone else. Trying to emulate someone at the wrong part of their career. Let me explain. So the thing that's on my mind today is I got an email, and this is from a label that is based in Korea. And they want me to come to Korea in September to work on some records. And one of the things that the email says is, they're trying to sell me on coming to work on the project, and they referred to BTS in the email, not because of my work that I've done with BTS, but saying that they think they have the next BTS. And for me, it's almost an immediate turnoff. The reason why it's a turnoff is because I think that we overall have a bad habit of wanting to emulate things at the height of its success. I think that's a wrong approach. I also think it's a dangerous approach, and I think it's an approach that just lacks substance. And one of the things that I've always liked about BTS and the executive team over there, and in the production team, including P-Dog and those guys, is they're really fans of hip-hop. And it doesn't take long for someone like myself to interact with them and see that they're really fans of the culture of hip-hop. So when a label is telling me that they have the next BTS and it's based off of maybe aesthetic or what they think one of the members has the potential to be, it's almost laughable for me, because you don't emulate a career path by starting at the height. You have to go back to the beginning. And that's why today on this episode, we're going to break down No More Dream. So No More Dream was released in June of 2013. And I actually remember seeing the video very early on, around the time that it debuted, because I had a friend that was already working in the Korean space with groups like Big Bang and a few other groups. So one of the things that I would notice when he would show me different material from Korea during that time was the heavy influence from Black American culture, not just music, but cultural dress and different things like that. Some of it will be really cool and really interesting to see, like, how this culture created here spread so far across the world. And then there would be times I would see things like certain hairstyles or just certain things that would just kind of throw me off a bit. So when I first saw the video for No More Dream as it was coming on, I almost turned the channel. And I remember when the music first dropped, because I have the little introduction and they're walking by the school bus and he's introducing each of the members by name and there's a different beat playing. And then the beat for No More Dream drops and I hear those first notes and I immediately thought of New York State of Mind by Nas. So I let the song continue to play. No clue what they're saying. I could hear obviously the English words, but not having a real sentiment for, what message they were conveying. But based on the beat and based on what New York State of Mind was about, something about that song really, really, really drew me in. And I put them on my list as a group to pay attention to and to watch out for. I had no idea that 6 years later that I would be collaborating with them regularly, sending back and forth ideas and eventually even landing a song on one of the biggest albums of all time. So it's funny how these things kind of come full circle. So I want to show you what it was that I was hearing in New York State of Mind, and then especially after learning what the translations were for No More Dream and how these two worlds kind of intersect and collide. And I find it quite interesting. Hopefully you do too. So New York State of Mind by Nasir Jones, and produced by the legendary DJ Premier, is heralded as one of the greatest hip-hop songs of all time, off of one of the greatest hip-hop albums of all time. And on the album, it's actually track 2 right after the intro. So it's the first thing that you hear on such a classic body of work released in 1994. Another cool thing about this song is the chorus on New York State of Mind actually samples a Rakim line from his song Mahogany, which is fitting because so many people looked at Nas as like the second coming of the God MC Rakim. And he had a lot of hype and a lot of people thought he was going to be great, as he did. He's one of the greatest rappers of all time. The beat itself has been listed in Complex or Billboard, I think, as one of the 100 greatest hip-hop beats of all time. The actual song has been on Rolling Stone list as one of the top rap songs of all time. It's a cultural, iconic record. So one thing about Nas, I think when he debuted, I think Nas was 19. So as a rapper, it's quite young, especially for someone that actually has a message in their music and that is being like a voice for the voiceless, because that's what hip hop has always been. It's been the voice of the voiceless. And to hear Nas come out on New York State of Mind, especially me being so young, I think when the song came out, I think that I might have been maybe like 8 or 9 or so. And I was a big West Coast fan. I didn't really like any East Coast music. It sounded depressing to me, honestly, in comparison to, Dr. Dre and the stuff that I was hearing around my house. But for some reason, when I heard this song, I remember hearing it and it just transformed me. I didn't know where I was at, but I felt like I was in Queensbridge projects where Nas is from, hearing that song. One of the things that Nas said about this record, he said it's one of his favorites because it painted a picture of the city like nobody else. He said he was about 18 when he wrote the rhyme, and he was working on his first album his whole life up until that point when it came out. I was a very young cat talking about it like a Vietnam veteran, talking like I've been through it all. That's just how it felt around that time. And one of the bars before he gets to the second verse, it was at the end of the first verse, iconic, legendary bar of Nas. He said, "I never sleep, because sleep is the cousin of death." And I was so enamored with the wordplay and the idea of that. And also because, as you know, if you're listening to this, my family nickname is Sleep. And I've been called that since I was a very young kid. So just hearing that in general, it caught my attention. And I remember that the feeling that I had when I first heard that record and how amazing it was. So fast forward 20 years later, I'm hearing a song by a Korean group I see 7 guys, I see the baggy clothes, I see the hairstyles, and it's a lot of confusion going on in my brain aesthetically as I'm watching this. Then the beat drops, and then they start rapping. And as they start rapping, in my mind, I'm like, this is like a Korean version of New York State of Mind, but what could they possibly be talking about? And I'm listening to this song, and I literally have no clue other than hearing words of like dream, or I hear like big house, big car, and I don't know what they're talking about, but I felt it. And that's what made me first pay attention to BTS. Now, to get into the music part of it, New York State of Mind samples a song by Joe Chambers, and I'm going to play you the sample right now. Now, if you listen here, this is how DJ Premier flipped this sample for the classic Nas track, New York State of Mind. And now here's the first few bars of No More Dream by BTS. Now, I'm not saying that this is a copy of New York State of Mind, but the feeling is very familiar. And knowing what New York State of Mind was about and what it meant to Nas, finding out that RM is a big Nas fan, and then hearing this be a debut single, and then eventually learning the translations and the message of the song, it's really cool to see, like 20 years apart, how these two songs kind of just collided in my brain. And so for translations, I often use the dual set WordPress site that was recommended to me by So Many Army. Now the opening line is, "Hey you, what is your dream? Is your dream only that?" Now just these first couple of bars, it makes me feel like, especially as a big hip hop fan, it makes me feel like I'm listening to someone who is speaking on behalf of the youth, where they're from. And for me, the voice of the youth is always going to be important, because I feel like even though they haven't gone through as much life as us older adults, you know, I remember what that was like, and I remember seeing the world, and I remember having sometimes irrational solutions for how the world can be a better place. And I think that energy is needed, especially in hip hop. And like I said before, it's like the voice for the voiceless. So you have this group, and with their opening lines, to me, it's feeling like they're speaking on behalf of a whole generation. So imagine my frustration when I get these different work requests, and one of the selling points is, we have the next BTS, or we have the next whatever, any talented artist. This happens all the time. And usually when they say they have the next version of whatever it is they're claiming to have the next version of, it's a poor copy, a poor duplicate, and it's usually based on things that may be aesthetic, or things that don't really translate to why a group or an artist has become a cultural phenomenon, why so many people feel connected to them, why people adore someone's talents and their message. Like, how can you have the next BTS if the group that you have doesn't even have rappers, and they aren't versed in hip hop, and they haven't taken the time to try to understand the true essence of what hip hop is? Because there's a big difference between hip hop and rap, and we'll get into that one day. That's going to be a long episode. The two worlds often collide, but they're not often the same thing. So you have a group that's the next BTS, but they have no understanding of hip hop. They just do a little bit of rapping. Make that make sense? Okay, so back to that line. I think it's a powerful way to actually address the listener. Like, what is your dream? It's a simple question, but it's a big question. You ask someone what they want to be when they grow up. What is your dream? And people either freeze or they have, enormous dreams. I had a nephew that told me that he was going to be a doctor, but in the summertime, he was going to be a music producer and work with me in the studio. And I didn't knock him. I said, hey, let's do it. So repetitively asking someone what their dream is and then asking, is that all? It's an interesting way to, like, where you might think that he's speaking with a negative kind of tone, but I don't think the intention is like to try to patronize or discredit the person listening to the song, but more so trying to like make them want to dream bigger. And I think that's the message throughout the song. So going back, tying this back in with New York State of Mind, I have a way that like I interpret these two worlds colliding. Like I feel like you have RM in Korea and he's talking to his peers, letting them know you have all this opportunity in front of you, but what is your dream? What are you going to do about it? How are you going to get there? Because he's heard Nas talk about New York State of Mind, someone who wants to dream, but the environment that he's in doesn't even allow for dreams to happen. And you almost get this parallel, like, RM is like almost like trying to like explain to his peers that you need to dream bigger because you have no idea how good you have it right in front of you, because it could be a lot worse. And then you have Nas on New York State of Mind talking about murders and robbings and all these different things that he's seeing on a daily basis as he just tries to survive. So back to No More Dream. Suga jumps in. This is my first time hearing him, and he says, his parts in English. He says, I want a big house, big cars, and big rings, but the truth is, I don't have any big dreams. Haha, I live very comfortably. Even if I don't dream, nobody says anything. So I really enjoyed like this back and forth dynamic of like how Suga kind of just jumped in and grabbed the baton, and he's like saying, the part that's in English, saying he wants a big house, big cars, and big rings. And he's saying he wants these things, but he doesn't even really have any big dreams. And I think that kind of circles back to part of like the issue of like what I've been talking about all along with wanting the success, but not knowing how to get there, or wanting to emulate the success, wanting to show the shiny things, but not fully having the plan of how you're going to get those things. And I think what's interesting about that is how a dream in general can be the motivation. I love the word dream. And I do believe that dreams are a huge, huge motivational factor. But I also think that today a lot of people are sheerly motivated not by the dream itself, but by the things that the dream can bring them and not how they would get there, if that makes sense. And I think that's what Suga's conveying in the line, kind of in a tongue-in-cheek way. And then he kind of laughs it off, saying that he's comfortable and that even if he doesn't have a dream, he doesn't even feel pressured by his peers to even have one. It's like everybody's living comfortable in this like state of complacency because everything is okay. And that is also a luxury that in the parallel, if you parallel this to New York State of Mind, that Nas in his adolescence was not given the opportunity to have because of all of the things in his environment. And it shows how dreams can be taken for granted. And then we have RM come back and he says, every single one thinks the same way as I do. the completely forgotten childhood that was filled with dreams. And this goes back to what I said a couple minutes ago about my nephew, how he had this goal of, I think he said he wanted to be a doctor, part-time, I think professional athlete, and then also a music producer in the summertime with me. And while that is like, just an insane work ethic that will be needed to be able to do those three things, it does convey like, what this line says. It says the completely forgotten childhood that was filled with dreams. And when you ask a kid what their dream is, it's usually something extremely optimistic. And it starts to just get watered down with something that's much more safe as you start to get older, as the world tells you that you can't achieve this or you can't achieve that, or you have to do this or you should do this. And that's something that I know firsthand. I remember when I decided to stop going to college and pursue my dream of being a music producer and a songwriter. And I didn't have anybody to point to that was successful in this field. It was a pipe dream. I'm from Los Angeles, but at the time I was going to school in Bakersfield. That's where I went to high school at. And me telling people that I wanted to be a music producer outside of my two best friends, nobody believed I could do it. The girl I was dating at the time, she told me my dream was stupid. You all look stupid. Meanwhile, she was in school studying theater to be an actor. I just found that ironic. But it's true. As you get older, life tends to beat you down a little bit, and anything that was exciting that you might have had in mind for yourself as a child just gets watered down and diluted, and you get forced to go the quote-unquote safer route and fall in line with everybody else. So then you get the line, don't worry about college. I'll go to at least one even if it's far away. Okay, Mom, I'm telling you, I'm heading to the library now. So here Dulcet says, most good colleges are geographically concentrated in Seoul, though there are a few exceptionally well-known private institutions elsewhere in the country. There's a term in Seoul commonly used to describe universities in Seoul. Whether students can get into in-Seoul universities or not is a major criterion when evaluating their academic performances, and even further, their future career path and success. I'll go somewhere even if it's far away means that he will go to any college, not necessarily in Seoul, because getting the diploma is what matters more than what he learns. Thank you for that context. So then we get to the line that says, what's the image of you that you've dreamed of? Right now, who do you see in the mirror? I gotta say, go your own way. Even if you live for a single day, do something, anything. So I actually like this line a lot. I'm reading the translation here, and I'm also giving you just my perspective on what it makes me think when I hear that lyric. And when I hear it, it makes me think of the positioning for like them to be a new group, for them to be so young, and for the position to be challenging their peers, their classmates on what kind of future they see for themselves. It says a lot about the group. It says a lot about the message. It says a lot about the overall theme of what they're about, and consistently having messaging in their music. From day one, from the very first song, you see that there is messaging in the music. And to me, once again, like that's the epitome of what hip hop is, the voice of the voiceless. Speaking on your realities, being a reporter for what you see in your environment. And that's what they're doing here in No More Dream, is challenging everybody to dream bigger. Even if it's not forever, but to follow your dream, go on your own path. No matter what you decide to do, just do something that is your own. Like, not your parents' dream, not what society has set up and laid out for you, but following your own dream. That's a big statement for the first song from a group, in my opinion. And that's what put them on my radar. So then you get to the next lines, and it says, Put your weakness away. Why aren't you saying anything? You said studying isn't your thing. You're actually scared to drop out of school, right? Look at you. You're already planning to go to school. Please grow up, dude. You're just all talk with a glass mentality. So once again, he's challenging his peers, challenging the listener, and saying that you're being weak. And so here they are again, positioning themselves as leaders, challenging their peers. You're telling the person that's listening to the song, your peer, that you're being asked what your dream is, but you can't even speak up and say what it is. Why not? Why are you hesitating? And then asking your same peers, like, why do you have this nonchalant attitude towards school or academics? And then they kind of say, well, from my understanding is, oh, you're afraid to leave school because you don't want to face real life. And I think that is a message that can be, frankly, for anybody. I think a lot of people find themselves in position to be complacent in the life that they live and not wanting to pursue something at a deeper level. You know, people fall into a trap of a job or a 9-to-5 that they might hate, but they might have a brilliant idea to develop a product, create content, start a podcast, many, many things people have dreams to do, but they're too scared to speak up. They're too scared to try it. And I think that is why the messaging in this song doesn't just apply to the peers. I think it applies to society because people are scared to pursue their dreams. They're scared to step out. They're scared to branch out from the things that make them feel safe, when a lot of times these things are set up to be traps or to make you just exist as a cog in someone else's dream. And then you get to the point where he yells, stop. And then you get the little pause in the beat. And instead of him saying anything right here, it's almost like he's like leaving you alone for a moment with your thoughts to really take in and convey the message that he's trying to get across. Like, that's your moment for self-reflection, which I think is really dope artistically. So then we get back to the point where after telling you to stop and think, he's asking you, hey, you, what is your dream? Is your dream only that? And then you have these couple bars where it says, it's a lie, you such a liar. See me, see you, you're a hypocrite. Why do you keep telling me to go on a different path? Hey, take care of your own business. Please don't force me. What is your dream? What is your dream? What is it? So in saying that, it sounds to me like more challenging, like challenging his peers who aren't being necessarily like realistic, or I don't say realistic, but not being true to who they are. It's almost like he has people telling him what he should do when they didn't even follow their own path. They didn't follow their own dream, and they didn't have the courage to do the things that they're telling other people to do. And he keeps driving this point home of saying, like, what is it? What is it? Is that all? Which is making the listener, making the peers reflect more on dreaming bigger. And I think that's really, really dope writing, especially from them being at the age they were when this song was released. The song was released 11 years ago. So then you come back and we have the bars. On the same boring day, on every repetitive day, adults and parents forcefully instill dreams that are molded. So here it's Suga is kind of just describing exactly what I was talking about. It's kind of being stuck on like the hamster wheel, like the same thing day to day, day to day, day to day. Everything's the same. I'm guessing in this context, he's mentioning it towards his peers for school, which is probably just school study, school study, school study, heavy work, school study, school study, school study. But once again, I think this also relates to people who feel stuck. And they may have bigger ideas, but they are stuck on a hamster wheel of a 9-to-5 job that they're getting up to, sitting in traffic every day, going to work, come home, go to sleep, rinse and repeat, and they're not happy doing it. So this bar is interesting because as a kid, like, if you say that is a dream job of yours, you're saying it because you've heard your parents say it. I'm imagining. I don't know how highly smiled upon like a government job, number one employee at a government job is paved out to be in Korean culture. But, just thinking here in America where you have these different dreams that are kind of pushed on you by your parents, it sounds like it's similar in that instance, because it's secure and it's safe. And when you get to a place in life to where you're choosing security and safety versus something that makes you feel alive, that is when you are denying your dream. You're snuffing your dream out, and you're compromising for whatever it is that you feel would just simply work and help you get on the hamster wheel. And then you have the final bar of that lyric where it says, it's not a forced dream, a relief pitcher in the bottom of the ninth. With baseball, I know Suga's a big sports fan, so am I. But what he's saying here in baseball, the bottom of the ninth, that's the last inning. So, you have a relief pitcher come in. You might be winning by 1 run. And a relief pitcher basically comes in to try to get the other team out so you can win the game. So they come in to kind of save you at the end. And he's comparing the dream job as a government official to a bit of a safety net, like something that just come save you at the end of the day because you were too scared to dream, which to me is a really dope bar. It's one of my favorite bars of the record. So then we have throw a fastball to the self-study time. That's a waste of time. I like this because it just feels like, we're going to hit this head on, basically. In baseball, a fastball is something that you're just throwing right down the pipe. Like it's if you have your best pitcher against someone's batter, you're betting that throwing a 100-mile-an-hour fastball is going to get the job done versus the other way around. And he's saying, the self-study is a waste of time, and he's throwing a fastball at it or a stone at it in a way of meaning a straightforward and blunt comment, says here in the translation, which is dope. And then this next line is one of the more special lines in the song to me, where he says, rebel against this hell-like society, give your dream a special pardon. And I think that that's something that people really, really, really are afraid to do. And I think that a lot of times when we see people do great things, I think that the biggest difference between someone who does something great and someone who doesn't is really someone who believes that they can or can't do it. And I think both people are right. I think that if you do have any sort of rebellious nature in your spirit and you can find yourself in position to give your dream a special pardon, that you can succeed at that dream. Now, does that mean everybody that's ever wanted to play basketball can be LeBron James? Absolutely not. That's just not how it works. But you can be Maverick Carter, who is LeBron James's good friend who learned how to be a sports agent, and now he's one of the most successful sports agents in the history of the sport. Just because you can't be that main person or what you perceive as the main person doesn't mean that you can't find your place surrounding your dream. My dream was to be a musician, and I wanted to be a rapper. And I also realized that I don't like to perform. I don't crave being on stage. I don't crave the spotlight. And I found that creating the music and writing the songs and being behind the scenes was a much more feasible and sustainable and rewarding career for me personally. And this line is like a really special line. Rebel against this hell-like society, give your dream a special pardon. I think that's the message. I think that's what you're supposed to do. And, this next line here where it says, be the subject of your own life that has only been suppressed. And the note here says, be the subject as opposed to the object, which is amazing. So not only are they positioning themselves as leaders, they're challenging their peers, they're challenging societal norms and societal standards, and they're telling the people that are listening to them to not be afraid to dream. And what better message could you have from a debut group? And they're doing it in such an aggressive way and on a track that just reminds me of New York State of Mind. And it's just really dope. So that should really explain my frustration when I have a label call me with this excitement and wanting me to fly halfway across the world. And they're selling me on their vision for this group that they are preparing for debut. And they want my help with producing and songwriting. And they lead by telling me that they have the next BTS. Then once they start describing the group to me and their plans for the group, none of it sounds like anything BTS related. So then it makes me wonder, well, what are you emulating? Are you here to try to emulate the height of BTS success? Or are you here to be inspired by the blueprint that they've laid out? Because it's a beautiful blueprint, and I think that there is a lot to study and there's a lot to learn from what they've done. But thinking you're going to be the next BTS based off an aesthetic and not based off of a knowledge of self, knowledge of hip-hop, knowledge of society, your own perspective, your own thoughts, an amazing work ethic, and so many other variables and factors. I hate to break it to you, but that's not going to work. At least it's a big dream, though.
Lord, everything you need, come and see a real one. Time for you to feel alive. I'm just trying to make you feel something.